France has faced criticism as an unreliable NATO partner. But recent rhetoric by President Emmanuel Macron risks positioning it as the alliance's most problematic member, surpassing even Turkey. Under President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey has backslid on upholding core NATO principles of democracy and press freedom. It has cracked down on journalists and opposition groups, with over 200 media outlets shuttered. Turkey's purchase of Russian S-400 missile defenses against the objections of fellow NATO members resulted in its removal from the F-35 fighter program, as Russia could collect intelligence on the aircraft. While Turkey has largely supported Ukraine against Russia's invasion, it continues threatening rhetoric and actions toward fellow NATO ally Greece over disputed islands. However, Macron's statements following an April 2022 trip to China have raised alarms that France may now undermine NATO solidarity in dealing with Beijing's ambitions. On his return flight, Macron cautioned Europe against getting entangled in crises not its own, arguing this impedes Europe building strategic autonomy. He suggested Europe avoid blindly following the US into any conflict with China over Taiwan, instead advocating a third way in relations. Macron's remarks earned praise from Beijing, but criticism from European leaders worried about China's designs on Taiwan. The island manufactures over half the world's semiconductors, critical components enabling modern economies and militaries to function. China potentially seizing Taiwan represents both an ideological threat to the democratic world order and an economic catastrophe if it gains control of Taiwan's pivotal microchip production. Taiwan's sanctions on Russia over Ukraine highlight this vulnerability, with Russia's high-tech weapons capabilities hampered by being unable to obtain advanced microchips. China controlling Taiwan's semiconductor capacity would give it massive leverage over any country it opposes. While Macron rightly noted Europe's excessive reliance on US military protection, his rhetoric undermines transatlantic cooperation while still expecting America's security guarantees. Certainly, Europe should invest more in its own defense rather than depend on the US. But Macron appears more interested in boosting French business opportunities in China than European strategic autonomy. In Beijing, Macron was accompanied by over 30 French company executives, suggesting lucrative contracts were his priority. His speech closely aligned with Chinese aims of reducing US global influence. China further embarrassed Macron by immediately holding threatening military drills around Taiwan following his visit. Remarks by China's ambassador to France denying the sovereignty of former Soviet states also sparked outrage across Europe. Yet despite the backlash, Macron has continued advocating for a European third way on China, rather than standing up to its authoritarian ambitions that threaten European security and democracy worldwide. Rather than securing any Chinese commitment to help end Russia's war on Ukraine, Macron's trip seemed aimed at deals for French firms. His pursuit of French business interests now threatens European unity against Russian and Chinese aggression. Macron appears willing to become a Chinese economic vassal in exchange for commercial opportunities, turning his back on European allies and democratic values. But it's not too late for France to change course. By reaffirming its commitment to NATO in deeds and words, France can still deter China from invading Taiwan and upending the global order.